Happy New Year, everyone. On today's episode of Notable New England, I'm having a chat with you all about some New England-style resolutions that I'll be embarking on that you can take into the new year, too, as well as highlights from 2025 and what's to come in 2026 for the podcast. Let's have a cozy chat and celebrate new beginnings. Hello, lovely listeners, and thank you for tuning in to the first Notable New England episode of 2026. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Gretchen B., and I am a lifelong proud New Englander. I hope everyone has had an enjoyable and relaxing holiday season. I certainly had a lot of time to relax during my 2-week staycation. I got to do some cool stuff, including seeing the Midwinter Revels. I went to go see the Heather Pearson Trio perform the Charlie Brown Christmas album. I also attended Solstice at the Mount Auburn Cemetery, and I was also fortunate to check out the Alan Rohan Crite exhibit at the Boston Athenaeum. Throw in some sleeping, eating yummy holiday treats, and taking time to not have to work, and being able to fully immerse myself in fun and relaxation. It has been quite a blessing. But tomorrow, it's back to work and responsibilities, but I feel like at least I'll be starting with a bit of a clearer mind. So on today's episode, I thought I'd have a chat with all of you about some New England-style resolutions that I'll be focusing on that you can focus on too, as well as pointing out some highlights of 2025 and what I'm planning for 2026 for the podcast. This is sort of a little bit of a catch-up with all of you before I officially kick off the 2026 episodes. Before I get to all of that, though, let's dig into some Wicked Light Bites, community-oriented stories and happenings from each New England state. Would you want to live next to a donut plant that produces more than 1 million donuts and pastries a day for Dunkin' Donuts? Well, some in Haverhill, Massachusetts are apparently not happy about that very thing. Creek Brook CML is one of Dunkin's largest manufacturing facilities, and residents have been complaining that their houses constantly smell like donuts. Sean Wilson, a Haverhill, Massachusetts resident who lives near the plant, says, quote, "My house smells like donuts all the time for the last 2 months. It's distracting and it's heavy," end quote. City Councilor Sean Toohey added that he had a conversation with a resident who stated the smell was like, quote, "carnival smell with a fried dough," end quote. Councilman Toohey suggested that the city's Health and Human Services Department should have a look at the facility to inspect it and see if there are ways to decrease the smells being emitted. A spokesperson for Creek Brook CML, who runs the facility, says, quote, "We do take extreme measures to try to limit our air effluents. The smell, though, we make 1 million donuts a day," end quote. The plant operates from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. each day, and they supply donuts for up to 300 stores, and they're hoping to increase that to 900 stores, which actually would mean expanding hours to 8 hours a day for the production. Haverhill's City Council continued the meeting to discuss air quality until January 13th. Information for this item comes from Beth Trefeisen at boston.com. After a more than 30-year hiatus, ice skating is back at Franklin, New Hampshire's Odell Park. It used to be a popular spot where families would skate and kids could have hockey games, but that all ended in 1992. Local resident Kathy Fuller wanted to change that, so she and a group of volunteers raised money and collected over 100 pairs of skates to bring back skating to Odell Park. Kathy Fuller says she got the idea when she saw two men skating on Lake Winnipesaukee, and she worried they and others who did that might be in danger of cracking the ice. She put a message on Facebook urging people not to skate on Lake Winnipesaukee and warning of the dangers. She ended up hearing from one of the men she saw that day, and he said he was trying to find a large, safe part of the ice that his kids could skate on because there were no dedicated skating areas that exist in Franklin, New Hampshire. So Kathy Fuller became the treasurer of the newly formed Franklin Parks and Recreation Volunteers Committee, dedicated to revitalizing the rink. The committee raised $3,200 within its first week. Now that amount is over $44,000, and most donations were from members of the community or people who enjoyed skating at Odell when they were younger. They received over 100 pairs of skates from residents who combed their cellars, flea markets, and garage sales and donated them. Kathy Fuller says, quote, "We'd like to make sure that any kid who wants to skate has access to a pair of skates. So the more donations we receive, the better, just to have a stash that we can loan out, hopefully as needed by these kids," end quote. The rink had its grand opening on December 30th and will be open Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. and then 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekends, weather permitting, until March. Information for this item comes from Amelia Wisniewski of the Concord Monitor. A 72-year-old Linden, Vermont carpenter is a YouTube sensation with his channel, Ken's Carpentry, which is actually spelled carpentry with a K. So Ken's Carpentry. Very cute. Ken Grant's channel blends this old house style woodworking instruction along with lighthearted moments and offers an authentic look into his work right from his home in Linden, Vermont. He spent the summer building a tiny home while the cameras were rolling, and he plans to sell it when it is completed. Ken Grant edits the videos and reviews about 20 clips per episode and listens back to his commentary before publishing. He says, quote, "I was at one point making more money making YouTube than I was working," end quote. He responds personally to every comment he gets on YouTube, and his philosophy for his channel is to make carpentry accessible to and enjoyable to everyone. He has reached millions of viewers over the years and typically ends his videos with his signature happy dance that viewers especially love. Information for this item comes from Joe Carroll at WCAX3. Middle School of the Kennebunks band director Lori Ellis marched in the Rose Parade on New Year's Day with the band director's marching band. Ellis has been teaching band students for nearly 40 years. She was the only Maine band director marching in the Rose Bowl parade. She played trumpet alongside nearly 400 band directors from across the country and beyond. In 2023, she marched in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. She has even marched in the Rose Parade once before, but she says that was 40 years ago. The band director's marching band's slogan is, quote, "We teach music, we teach life," end quote. Lori Ellis lives by that motto and says, quote, "The kids learn how to cooperate, they learn how to listen. This is middle school. We're going to have squeaks and squawks. We're going to have wrong notes. But to be able to work at something and to persevere is a life skill," end quote. Information for this item comes from Katie Delaney of News Center, Maine. Chef Jeremy Williams and his team whipped up a delightful feast of flank steak, potatoes, salad, corn, and brownies for hundreds of people on Christmas at Hands on Hartford in Hartford, Connecticut. Jeremy said, quote, "Our job here on Christmas is to just make it as nice as possible for the community that needs us most. For me, coming here in the morning, it's a wonderful thing, really." End quote. The community meal is a sit-down affair, and volunteers from Hands on Hartford brought food to each of the guests at their tables. The meal costs the guests nothing, and you did not have to pre-register. And the meal is sponsored by Max's Cares Foundation. The Daly family came for their 4th year, and Shannon Daly said, quote, "Every holiday they do a great job here. They're very generous, and we appreciate it," end quote. Information for this item comes from Andrew Rowan at NBC Connecticut. The 50th annual Penguin Plunge at Scarborough State Beach in Narragansett, Rhode Island raised over $260,000 for Special Olympics Rhode Island, with hundreds of people braving the icy waters for the New Year's Day dip to raise the money. All funds raised help Special Olympics Rhode Island provide year-round sports training and competitions to children and adults with intellectual disabilities free of charge. Special Olympics Rhode Island President and CEO Edwin Pacheco said, quote, "Even though it's cold and windy, there's no better way to warm your heart than to come out and support the most inspiring athletes in the world," end quote. Information for this item comes from Sarah Bodden at WPRI 12. Up after the break, let's sit back, relax, and have a little catch-up time. I'll be talking about some New England-style resolutions that I'll be embracing this year that you can too, as well as some 2025 highlights and what's in the works for 2026 for the podcast. You're listening to Notable New England. For all things Notable New England, be sure to visit the website, notablene.podbean.com. You'll find all of the episodes, links to our social media, and ways that you can support the podcast. Again, visit notablene.podbean.com. That's notablene.podbean.com. Kick off the new year by going to your favorite podcast app and giving Notable New England a 5-star rating so that we can help others discover the podcast and become a part of our Notable New England family. It really does help to get more eyes and ears on the podcast. Or how about telling a friend or family member about Notable New England? Word of mouth recommendations go a long way and help to build our audience and grow our community. If you want to support the podcast financially, you can do so with a one-time gift at buymeacoffee.com/Notable New England. That's buymeacoffee.com/Notable New England. I'll even give you a shout out on the air as a thank you. If you wish to become a sustaining member of the podcast, you can do so for as little as $2 a month, and you'll get early ad-free listening. And there are more perks for different giving tiers, including Notable New England merch and more. You can visit patreon.com/Notable New England. Again, that's patreon.com/Notable New England. Thank you for your support and helping me continue bringing you the content you are interested in and enjoy. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for tuning into Notable New England. So for today's episode, I thought I'd have a chat with you all to discuss some 2026 New Year's resolutions with a New England twist that I hope to embrace this year and hope you will too, as well as to share some highlights from 2025 and give you some insight into my plans for 2026 for the podcast. So let's start out with a few highlights from 2025. So November 2025 marked the 1-year anniversary of the podcast, and I'm so delighted to have you wonderful listeners tuning in frequently. The audience numbers have been growing slowly but steadily, and I'm very, very grateful for that. I learned from my podcast analytics, chats with listeners, as well as the audience survey I have done, that my lovely listeners are very engaged, with many listening to every episode or nearly every episode of the podcast. It's great to see that people seem to enjoy it. And many people responded via my audience survey that they enjoy the Wicked Light Bites segment and find it interesting to learn about community stories and happenings from each of our New England states. Also noted in the survey, people stated that they like the mix of storytelling as well as interviews with guests, some stating they'd love to hear even more interviews with New Englanders about topics like New England history, the music and arts scene, food and dining, books, and spotlights on New England cities and towns. The most popular and listened to episodes of 2025 were as follows. I'm doing a top 5 list of the top 5 most popular and listened to episodes. So in the number 5 spot was episode 7, Meet the Pizza Weatherman from Maine, where we talked to weatherman Jason Nappy. In the number 4 spot was episode 11, Wacky Laws of New England. Are you breaking these without even knowing it? In the number 3 spot was episode 22, Discover the Festival Bringing Maritime Music to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where we talked to Chris Madden about the festival, sea shanties, and maritime culture in New England. In the number 2 spot was episode 23, Beyond Salem, Halloween Adventures Across New England. And in the number 1 spot was episode 14, Off the Beaten Path Boston, a local's guide to hidden gems. All in all, I'd say 2025 was pretty darn good for the podcast, and I've really enjoyed having all of the guests who have joined us, as well as researching topics and happenings in New England to share with you all. I'm also grateful to all of my Patreon supporters for helping to sustain the podcast with their monthly contributions, and to everyone who has left a review or who has recommended the podcast to others. Because of you, I feel good about the slow and steady growth that I'm seeing and getting more eyes and ears on the podcast so that we can grow our community. Now, last year, I did an episode on some New England-style New Year's resolutions, so I thought I'd share with you what some of my New England-style New Year's resolutions are for 2026 in hopes they inspire you to do the same. First off, I'm going to be a tourist in my own state, and really, all of New England. I was born, raised, and still live in Massachusetts, and it hit me that there are so many things around here I've always meant to do, but somehow never have. For example, I have never been to the Boston Tea Party Museum. I know, it's supposedly kitschy and touristy, and lots of people have done it, but honestly, I want to see it for myself. I've also never taken a guided tour of the Freedom Trail. I've walked it on my own plenty of times, but how cool would it be to experience it with a guide, hear the lesser known stories, and learn things that I didn't already know? I'd love to finally make it to Martha's Vineyard because, believe it or not, in all my years of living in New England, I've never been. And I really want to visit the Edward Gorey House in Yarmouthport, Massachusetts, just because I love his art. And those are just a few examples. There's so much more in Massachusetts and throughout New England that I haven't explored yet. I encourage you to do the same. Be a tourist in your own town or city, your state, your region. Go check out the places you've always said, geez, I've always wanted to go there, but never quite got around to. It's amazing how much is right in our own backyards that we overlook. Opening yourself up to those experiences, even if they're touristy or kitschy, can be genuinely fun, and you almost always learn something new along the way. Next, I'm going to continue to enthusiastically promote and gently plead with my New England community to use your public libraries. If you don't already have a library card, get one. It unlocks a whole world of knowledge and resources. We are incredibly lucky in this region to have spectacular public libraries that offer an abundance of services free to everyone. And it's not just about books. Many libraries lend tools, household items, computers, musical instruments, and more. Some even have makers spaces. My library in Cambridge, Massachusetts, for instance, has something called the Hive, where, you can use 3D printers, sewing machines, the podcast studio where I actually record this podcast, and more. I also constantly have heard this year people talking about how expensive streaming services have become, often costing more than cable ever did once you add them all up. One easy way to save money: pick up an inexpensive DVD player and borrow movies from the local library. Many libraries carry titles you can't find on the streaming platforms, and the best part, no commercials. Yes, even the cheapest streaming plans now make you sit through ads. On top of physical DVDs, many libraries also offer free access to streaming services like Canopy and Hoopla for card holders. There are also hubs for lifelong learning with free courses, lectures, author talks, and workshops. There's fantastic programming for kids too, story hours, special events, and even things like Noon Year's Eve celebrations so little ones can ring in the new year early. Now, how great is that? And don't forget museum and cultural passes. Many libraries offer free or discounted admission to local museums and attractions, saving you even more money. So do yourself a favor and support your local library in New England this year if you haven't been doing so already. They're powerful centers of community, and since your tax dollars already support them, you might as well take advantage of everything they offer. Lastly, I want to be more present in local community life. I'm talking block parties, concerts by local artists, art exhibits, city-hosted festivals and events, and volunteering in ways that help make my community stronger. Community matters. When we show up for one another, when we spend time together, create together, and support what's happening around us, we make things better. And the more connected you are to your community, the more voice you have in shaping it for the future. I encourage you to do the same in whatever ways feel right to you. Check out your town or city's parks and recreation department, for example. Sign up for email lists from local artists, musicians, and creatives you enjoy, so that you know where they'll be. Browse community calendars in your local paper or on social media and show up when you can. The more we can come together, the more we can support one another and the richer our communities become. Now, looking ahead to 2026, I've been thinking a lot about where I'd love to take the podcast. So first and foremost, I want to keep growing our audience so more people can find their way into the Notable New England community and help spread the word about how amazing this region we're lucky to call home is. I also want to have more conversations with New Englanders about the things that you've told me matter most to you. Our history, the towns and cities, books, music, the arts, food and dining, and all of the stories in between. Now, beyond the audio podcast, I'm excited to expand Notable New England with more New England-focused content on Substack, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm thinking videos and blog posts that dig even deeper and go behind the scenes into the people and places that make this region so special. And finally, I want to keep building the Patreon community so the podcast can be sustainable and I can continue making the content that you love. Your support truly makes all of this possible. I hope that all sounds good to you, my lovely listeners. My goal is obviously to keep you coming back and walking away having learned something new, feeling more connected to your local community, and maybe even becoming ambassadors for New England. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in to this episode of Notable New England. I hope it gave you a few ideas for resolutions that help you feel more connected to your communities and maybe even spark some excitement about what's ahead for the podcast in the new year. I'll be back on Sunday, January 18th with a brand new episode, and I hope that you will join me. Until then, take care, and I'll see you next time.